Long ago, in a quiet village nestled between tall mountains, there lived a young man who believed he knew everything about life. He was well-read, quick with words, and eager to prove his knowledge wherever he went. Whenever elders in the village tried to share wisdom, he would interrupt, finish their sentences, and boast that he had already heard or read about such things. Slowly he gained a reputation not as a wise person, but as an arrogant one who never listened. Still, in his heart he felt restless, for despite all his knowledge, peace and true understanding always escaped him. One day, he heard about a famous old monk who lived in a monastery high up in the mountains. Many travelers spoke of the monk's wisdom and how just a few words from him could transform lives. The young man grew curious and decided to visit the monk. In his mind, he thought, I will test this so-called wise man. I will ask him questions and see if he can impress me. If not, I will prove that I already know all there is to know. With this thought, he packed his belongings and began his journey to the monastery. The path was long and difficult, but eventually he arrived. The monastery was simple, built of stone, surrounded by gardens filled with blooming flowers. He was greeted by silence, the kind of silence that made the heart feel still. The young man found the old monk sitting peacefully in a courtyard, sipping tea as though time itself had slowed down for him. The young man bowed half-heartedly and said, Master, I have come to learn from you. Please teach me the secrets of life and wisdom. The monk nodded kindly and invited him to sit. Before speaking, the monk picked up a pot of tea and 2 cups. He poured tea into the young man's cup. He poured and poured until the cup overflowed, spilling tea onto the table and onto the ground. Stop, what are you doing? Cried the young man. Can't you see the cup is already full? It cannot hold any more. The monk paused, looked into his eyes, and said softly, just like this cup, you too are full of your own opinions, pride, and assumptions. How can I teach you anything unless you first empty your cup? The young man froze. For a moment his arrogance rose, ready to argue, but something about the monk's calm eyes silenced him. The truth of the words struck deeply. He realized that all his life he had been so busy proving himself right, that he had never made space to truly learn. His heart felt heavy, as though a mirror had been placed before him, showing him his pride clearly for the first time. The monk poured fresh tea into his own cup and sipped quietly. The silence stretched, but it was not uncomfortable. Instead, it was filled with meaning. The young man lowered his head and whispered, Master, I understand. I came here with pride, but I see now that wisdom cannot enter a closed heart. Please teach me how to empty my cup. The monk smiled and said, Humility is the beginning of wisdom. To empty your cup means to let go of the idea that you already know everything. It means listening more than speaking, observing more than judging, and seeking to understand rather than to prove. When your heart is humble, you will find that every person, every experience, every moment has something to teach you. From that day on, the young man stayed in the monastery, helping with simple chores. He swept floors, carried water, tended to the garden, and listened silently to the lessons of life unfolding around him. At first, his mind struggled. He wanted to speak, to show off, to argue. But gradually, he began to notice things he had never paid attention to before: the sound of the wind through the trees, the patience of the monks as they worked, the way each act was done with mindfulness. One morning, while carrying water up the mountain path, the young man slipped and spilled much of it. His first reaction was anger at himself, but then he remembered the monk's words. Instead of frustration, he took a deep breath and thought, this too is a lesson. Even mistakes can teach me patience and humility. Slowly, he felt his heart softening. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. The once arrogant young man found peace in silence and joy in small acts of service. He realized that true wisdom did not come from memorizing books or winning arguments, but from living with an open and humble heart. One evening, the monk approached him while he was sweeping the courtyard. The old man asked gently, Tell me, what have you learned so far? The young man bowed deeply and replied, Master, I have learned that I know very little. Each day shows me something new. When I let go of pride, I make space for wisdom. When I empty my cup, it is ready to be filled with understanding. And when I listen with humility, even the wind and the stones can teach me. The monk smiled, his eyes gleaming with quiet joy. then you have already begun your journey. Remember, the cup must be emptied again and again, for pride creeps back when we least expect it. Stay humble, and you will always find wisdom. Years later, the young man became a teacher himself. But unlike before, he did not boast of what he knew. Instead, he taught others the lesson of the empty cup. Whenever students came to him with arrogance or pride, he would pour tea until it overflowed, and tell them the same words the monk had told him. "How can I teach you unless you first empty your cup?"